So to do the programming of the MapTour app of the University of Rhode Island, let's move over to the Blocks window in App Inventor. We're also now going to go to the tutorial to find out what kind of behavior we need to do to make the maps come up. The first thing we're going to do is to initiate a variable using a list. Remember from the readings that a list is a value that contains multiple values. So in this case, we're going to make a list called destinations that lists text for the three possible destinations. In their app, they're doing Paris, so they have the Eiffel Tower, the Louvre, and Notre Dame. At University of Rhode Island, I'm going to have a label for Tyler Hall, for the Ryan Center, and for Ballantyne Hall. So I need to create this list. So back in App Inventor, I want a variable. So I'll click on the variables, and I need to initialize a global variable. We're going to call it destinations. And we want to initialize it to a list. To do that, we have to make a list. So I'm going to go over here and choose List, and choose Make a List. Up comes, when I set it in there, up comes this ability for you to say how many list items. I know I'm going to have 3 items, one for Ballantyne Hall, Tyler Hall, and the Ryan Center. The list by default comes with 2 items, so in this pop-up that comes up, which you can always get by clicking here, in the pop-up that comes up, I want to drag a 3rd item down to say I want a list of 3 items. So now I want to initialize the global variable destinations to be a list, and I want to give it the values of the list. So the values of the list are going to be text, so I come over here and choose a text item and a simple text phrase. Put it in here, get another one, put it in here, and the 3rd. And the items I want to appear on my list when the user says what destination do you want to go to, I put in here. So I click in here, one choice will be Tyler Hall, the second choice will be Ballantyne Hall, and the 3rd choice will be the Ryan Center. Now I've created a list called destinations that has index 1 being Tyler Hall, index 2 being Ballantyne Hall, and index 3 being the Ryan Center. Now I have to associate this list with the list picker component that I have on my user interface. And I want that list association to the list picker to be done when the program starts. So I'm going to get the event for when the program is initialized. The program is initialized when screen 1 is initialized. So I go over here to my list of components from the user interface, and I choose screen 1, and I find it's when screen 1 is initialized event. So when the screen 1 is initialized, which basically means my app starts, I want to associate this list with the list picker. So to do that, I go to the list picker, scroll down, and find the set list picker elements to, and I need to set it to the destinations. Destinations is set up here. If I click on the word destinations, I get to the get function, which will basically get all those destinations in the list, and I put it here. So now my program has 2 parts. Initialize destinations to having these 3 things, and that happens when the program starts. Also when the program starts, I'm going to set the list picker elements to the global destination list. What that does is when my user interface comes up and the user clicks on the pick a destination, the list picker will find these 3 items and display them as possibilities for the user to select from. The next thing I'm going to do is create a list of maps for the application to go off and get from Google, depending on what the user chooses from the list picker. So to do that, I'm going to create another global list called map URLs. So again, I'm going to get a variable, initialize the variable, to a list. I'm going to add a third item to the list. And I'm going to have 3 text boxes. Each will be the URL of the map. The first one being the URL of Tyler Hall's map. The second will be the URL of Ballantine Hall's map. And the third will be the URL of the Ryan Center map. Now I have to get these maps. To do this, I'm going to go off to Google Maps on my computer with a normal internet browser to get the URL that I want to plug in to these values. So I'm now at maps.google.com, and allow me to type in a search term for my map. So I want a map of Tyler Hall at the University of Rhode Island. And it gives me a Google map of Tyler Hall. There are different, you can choose all the different views that you want, street views, etc. I'm going to take a URL of this to have this map with all of the selection possibilities come up on my Android device as summoned down by my app. But I need the URL of this map. So I'm going to go here and click on this little link, and it's going to give me a link here. And I'm going to use Control-C on my Windows computer, Command-C on Apple, to copy the URL that comes up from this link. That URL is going to be now the text for the destination URL in my app. So going back to my app, initialize, I should call this the map URLs, and I want the first one to be a paste of the map to Tyler Hall. So I'm just going to do a Control-V on Windows to paste in that long URL of the map, Google map of Tyler Hall. Now I'm going to do a similar thing for Ballantine Hall. Have its map come up. It'll look kind of similar from this view, but when it comes down to the phone, there'll be other views that show actually, street views of Ballantine. And I want that link. Copy it back into App Inventor, paste it in. Finally, I want a map to the Ryan Center. It pops up, get my link, copy it back into App Inventor, and paste it in here. So now I have 2 lists. Destination is the text that the user will choose from, and map URLs are the URLs I want to send via the activity starter to Google to get a map. Notice that the order is important because the reading talked about indexes of lists. So when the user picks Ballantine Hall, they're basically picking the number 2 index in this list. The way the program is going to work is I will grab that index, say they're choosing Ballantine Hall, the index will be 2, and I'll use that index to index this list and get this URL, which is the URL to Ballantine. So again, it's important that the order of this list, Tyler, Ballantine, Ryan, be the same order here, Tyler, Ballantine, Ryan. So that when the user picks, I can take the index they pick. Say if they pick Ballantine, it'll be 2, and use that 2 to index this list to get the map to Ballantine Hall out. The final step in my programming is to capture the event that the user's actually picked something out of that list picker, get the index of what they've picked, use it to get a URL, and call my activity starter to pull the map down to the phone. Sounds like a lot, but it can all be done in a simple event handler. The event we want to handle is that the user has picked something. So if you go to the list picker component, you can see an event for after picking, which means the user has made a selection. So we'll take that event, the after picking for the list picker. After picking, the event handler is going to have available to it what index did the user pick. 1, which is Tyler Hall, 2, Ballantyne, or 3, the Ryan Center. And we want to pull that index out so that we can use it to get into this list. So after picking, we want to set the activity starter's URL to go off and get the right map. So I'm going to go over here to the activity starter and find the set activity starter data URI. URI and URL are interchangeable. So activity starter and get that. That's what I want. One of the things I want to do after they've picked is tell it to go to a certain website. But what website? Well, what I want to know is, what did they pick? Did they pick Tyler, Ballantyne, or Tyler, or Ryan? Whatever they picked, I want to know the index of it, so I can then index in here and get the right URL. So what did they pick? What they picked can be found under the list picker. You can do a find of the list picker, what image they pick or what selection. What way down here is the list picker, what index did they pick? Again, if they picked Ballantyne, it would be 2. So I'm going to take this and say that they picked the second index. And it's that second index that I want to go into this list to pull out the URL to send to the activity starter. So to do that, I need to select the item from the maps URL list. So I go over here to the lists and I find select item, where I give it a list and the index. So I want to, when the user's done picking, start the activity starter with its URL being go into the list. What list do I want? I want the maps URL list. So I'll get the maps URL list, and that's the list I want it to choose from. And what index do I want in here? I want the index that they picked up here, which I grabbed earlier. It's list picker 1's selection index. So what this is basically saying is, when the list picker is done picking, so the user's picked something, you want to set the activity starter's data URL, where is it going to go off and get a Google map from, to select from the list map URLs whatever selection index the user picked. Again, if they pick Ballantyne Hall, the index will be 2, so we're saying select index 2 from the map URLs, which means we'll send that URL off to Google as a web service to get the map back to our app. That ends the programming part of what we're doing. Take a good look at the program, and in the next segment, we'll see how it works on an actual Android device. To test this out, I'm going to connect my Android device using the Connect menu up here in App Inventor. So I'm going to connect using AI Companion. Remember, AI Companion is an app I've installed on my Android device. Actually, it's AI2 Companion because I'm in the App Inventor 2. It allows my device in real time to sync up with the app that I've written without actually downloading the app to my device. Just let's see how the app works. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and it's going to give me a code to type into my phone. And I'll go ahead and do that. Actually, before we go off and test it, I did forget one thing. We're supposed to actually start the activity. So I set the activity starter's URL to what it needs to be, but I haven't actually told it to start the activity. So one final thing, I have to go to the activity starter component and choose call activity starter start activity and put that in, tuck it in here in the event handler. So now my event handler says after picking, set the activity starter's URL to what was chosen and start the activity. This then should allow the phone to go off and pick up the website and display the map. So now I have my phone set up to emulate the app. Pardon the kind of poor webcam capture of this, but you can see the app running right there on my phone. Now you can see I've hit the Choose Location button, and it's presenting me the 3 locations from the list picker. I've now picked Tyler Hall as the location, and it's going off to get a Google map of that location, the Google Map URL that we chose before. And you can see that the map came up, and I have controls where I can choose Street View, Zoom in, Zoom out. Using the back arrow on my app, I can go back to the main interface and choose another location. So let's go in and choose the Ryan Center. And it pulls up a map of the Ryan